If you're ever down Florida way, somewhere outside of Tampa, you might come across a small wood in one of the state parks. There's nothing unusual about that small wood, not at first sight. But get a little closer to one of the trees at the center, and you'll see a small door set amongst the roots. A fairy door, and it leads to a magical land. "I'm hungry," said Slade, as he and his sisters flew above a carpet of summer flowers. "You're always hungry," laughed Ember. "He can't help it," said Capri seriously. "It's hard work beating these tiny wings." "You don't have to tell me that," sniffed Poppy. "I was ready to stop ages ago." "Hey, up ahead! Food!" Slade shouted, and whizzed forward to be the first to a single solitary tree that sprouted amongst the flowers. Its branches were twisted and old, but from amongst its leaves hung the most delicious and tasty of fruits, lollipops. "Wait for me!" yelled Poppy, as her two sisters charged after their brother. "You'd better not eat them all." But she need not have worried. There were hundreds of lollipops hanging there. They sat there amongst the branches, licking, sucking, and slurping at the tree's sugar-filled fruits. Ember was just reaching for her second, a blue lollipop to be exact, when somebody cleared their throat from somewhere in the upper branches. Looking up, she could see the black feathers of a raven peering down at them. "Hi," said Ember as nicely as she could manage. "I'm sorry, is this your tree?"
"Well, as a matter of fact, it is," said the raven. "But you're most welcome to help yourselves. It's nice to have guests."
"Oh, thank you," said Capri. "We should have checked before filling our bellies."
"Well, at least you're more polite than the last bunch of fairies that came through here," snorted the raven. "They weren't very nice at all."
"In what way?" asked Slade, helping himself to a bright green lollipop.
"Well, for one thing, they didn't like my lollipops one bit," the raven grumbled. "They called them terrible names and began plucking them from the branches and hurling them to the floor."
"Oh, what an awful waste," said Poppy, sounding completely disgusted.
"I know," agreed the raven. "Good healthy food like lollipops just thrown aside."
"But why?" Ember asked. "Why would fairies do such a thing?"
"Because they said that lollipops weren't good for you,"
uttered the raven, and all four fairies gasped to hear such a thing. "But that's nonsense," protested Slade. "Everyone knows that lollipops are the healthiest thing you can eat."
"Not according to these fairies," said the raven. "They said everybody should be eating apples and carrots and tomatoes and watermelon."
"Oh, yuck!" gagged Poppy. "Those things are really bad for you."
"I had to open my wings wide and scream, 'Caw-caw, caw-caw,' to frighten them away," said the raven. "They were trouble, I can tell you."
"But you said they were fairies," asked Capri.
The raven nodded. "But not completely like you. These fairies were much hairier than you guys."
"How hairy?" asked Slade.
"Very hairy," replied the raven. "Like little balls of fuzz. You'd know them if you saw them."
"Hairy fairies?" said Ember thoughtfully. They were all trying to picture them as they said farewell to the raven and flew away above the summer flowers. After a long journey, just as night was falling, they caught sight of their destination. "Home!" shouted Capri as Sugardrop Woods appeared on the horizon. As they drew closer and the sun finally set, tiny speckles of light shone amongst the trees like a star-filled sky. The four fairies, tired after their long journey, swept under the branches and down to where fairy houses clustered around the roots and lower trunks of the trees. Welcome back, shouted a friendly fairy upon seeing them. You're just in time. In time for what? Poppy asked Ember. Ember responded by slapping her palm against her forehead. Oh, we've been traveling for so long that we've forgotten what today is. It's the Sugar Festival. What? Yiped Slade. We nearly missed it? Not wishing to waste any more time, they stopped only to splash water on their faces before heading to the Grand Fairy Hall. The hall was already busy, with most of the fairies from Sugardrop Woods already there. They were feasting on gummy drops, marshmallows, and of course lollipops. The four of them licked their lips and got stuck in. Oh, it looks so beautiful, said Capri, as she gazed up into the tall domed roof strung with thousands of tiny lights. I've always loved this building. And she was right to be impressed. It truly was a magnificent place. But it wasn't just a space for the fairies to get together for parties and dances and feasts. Below it, in the hall's cellars, in what was once a fox's den, was a cavern called the larder. In this cavern was kept all the sweet, delicious goodies that kept the fairies so fit and healthy. Slade said there were more lollipops and sweet things down there than could be counted. On the Grand Fairy Hall stage, a band began to play, filling the hall with music. Ember found that she couldn't help but let her wings flutter as she swayed and rose with the tune. Flying over the heads of much of the crowd, she got a good look at the band and their delicate instruments. But that didn't hold her attention for long, because beside the band stood in a cluster were a group of very hairy fairies. Darting back to floor level, she surprised her siblings by drawing them to her urgently. Poppy, Capri, Slade, I've seen them. Seen who? Slade asked, feeling miffed that she was stopping him from enjoying his lollipop. Those hairy fairies that the raven was talking about, she exclaimed. They're over by the stage. Show us, said Poppy seriously. Rather than take to the air, Ember led them through the crowd so that they wouldn't be obvious. But when they reached where the band was playing, the huddle of hairy fairies was gone. But they were definitely here, confirmed Capri. Look! And she pointed to something disgusting that had been left on the floor. Oh, salad, said Slade. That's gross. And so bad for you, added Ember. Yes, but where have they gone? Asked Poppy suspiciously. And why are they here? I've just had a horrible thought, said Slade, looking towards a door behind the stage area. That way leads down to the larder. Oh no, yelped Capri. What if they want to destroy our lollipops, just like they tried with the ravens? We should tell someone, urged Slade. No time, said Poppy. We're going to have to deal with this ourselves. And so the four of them rushed for the door. The larder was where everyone who lived in Sugardrop Woods kept their food. So there weren't any guards or locked doors. You just went in when you wanted something and helped yourself. So nobody had been there to challenge or stop the group of hairy fairies as they made their way inside. What are they doing? Whispered Ember from her hiding place by the larder's entrance. They've lowered something down on the pulley. It looks like a net full of wooden boxes, said Slade. Are they stealing the lollipops? Wondered Capri. Or delivering fruit and vegetables. Yuck, added Poppy. I can't tell, said Slade. Shh, one of them's bringing a box this way. A hairy fairy approached where they were hiding, causing them all to duck lower down. In the process, they got a good view of this stranger. Not only was it covered in thick hair, but it had a large mouth with sharp teeth. It wedged the box underneath some chocolate drops and returned to the middle of the room. Yikes, whispered Capri. A scary hairy fairy. Poppy crept forward and lifted the lid of the box for a peek inside. "There are fireworks in there," she said when she returned. "And if all those boxes are the same, then they'll blow the larder sky high," Slade said. "And the hall and all the lollipops with it," groaned Ember. "We have to stop them," said Capri. "We must." "Okay," said Poppy. "I've got an idea. Now listen carefully." Moments later, the hairy fairies were almost done. Most of the boxes remained in the net where they'd been lowered down from above, but many had been scattered elsewhere. It promised to be one enormous explosion. The hairy fairies were chuckling amongst themselves as they watched one of their number place the last box between an enormous stack of barrels. They were clearly pleased with how easy this was proving to be. As the hairy fairy with the final box pushed the box between the barrels, it felt a sticky, gloopy substance run across its arms. "What's that?" it said, confused. The sticky stuff was so icky and sticky that it had trouble withdrawing its hands. "What's up?" asked another hairy fairy. "Dunno," said the first hairy fairy, standing up slowly. He was covered in syrupy fudge sauce. More was flowing around his feet, and a big dollop dropped onto his nose. The hairy fairies all looked up just in time to see Poppy tip an entire open barrel forwards. The shower of gloopy fudge splodged all over them, sticking them like glue. "What's that?" yelled one through its jagged teeth. "Icky sticky," bellowed another. "Stuck," roared another. For a moment, it looked like Poppy had taken care of the problem all by herself. But then, the least stickiest hairy fairy snatched up a candle and lit the fuse leading to the net full of boxes. Ember, Capri, and Slade leapt into action, taking to the air as their wings beat furiously. They headed straight for the roof of the cavern, where a trapdoor allowed goods to be lowered into the larder below. Ember and Capri grabbed the end of the rope up by the pulley and then flew hard towards the ground, forcing the net of boxes on the other end of the rope to be hauled upwards. Meanwhile, Slade got to the trapdoor and threw it open to reveal a cloudless night sky full of stars above them. "Faster!" yelled Capri. "The fuse is still burning!" The net rose rapidly, reaching the open air beside the hall just as the first box exploded. It was a dazzling shower of bright lights and sparks. Rockets shot skywards in every direction, banging and fizzing in a spectacular display. Then another box erupted, and then another. From the windows of the grand fairy hall, the citizens of Sugardrop Woods oohed and ahed at the pretty colors and loud bangs. As far as they were concerned, this was all part of the festival. They were loving it, completely unaware that had things worked out differently, the entire hall that they were stood in would have been blown sky high. It was much later, when the hairy fairies had been stickily dragged away to jail and the remaining firework boxes taken up to extend the fireworks show, that everybody learned about what had nearly happened. Slade, Ember, Capri, and Poppy were celebrated as heroes. As a thank you, each of them was awarded one of the biggest, tastiest lollipops any of them had ever seen. And now, every year, the people of Sugardrop Woods remember that night by holding a humongous firework display on the evening of the Sugar Festival. And everyone says thank you to 4 very special fairies. The end. So that you don't miss a single episode, just click that subscribe button.